Okay, let's try this again. When you are a slave to your hormones, you suffer. So, good morning. It is Sunday Morning Live, which I didn't put up there in the text box, but that's okay. A couple days before Christmas, and not a snowflake in sight. That kind of sucks. And I don't even see any snow happen in the next couple days. So, that's weird. But, anyways, I was kind of busy yesterday. It was nice to take a day off, and I was doing some interesting things, which I'm sure I'll tell you about later on. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I've been focusing a lot lately on hormones and how hormones create suffering in our society. So, and it's become really apparent because I remember when I reversed my PMDD, which was not too long ago. I remember every single time before my period, I would get acne. And acne is a sign of hormones and pathogens trying to escape the body. And that is, a huge footprint, a huge signature of overactive hormones. So I'm going to do a little test here. Hello. All right. And it's Sunday and it's right before Christmas, so I'm sure everybody's out with their families. But I wanted to kind of keep to this tradition. So anyways, so hormones, when you trigger your hormones in any possible way, and this is where the whole vaccine industry, the pills, powders, and supplements industry, the exercise industry, the health and wellness, just everything, allopathic, holistic, they all trigger your hormones. And when you trigger your hormones, you create estrogen dominance, you get progesterone for women, and that's the pregnancy pregnancy hormone. And then there's like adrenochrome, which is like adrenaline. There's so many different types of hormones, testosterone. And these hormones are there for a reason to allow the body to procreate when it gets triggered to do that. And right now, our whole society is all about triggering the hormones to where, yes, you procreate, or you procreate without really having the intention to have a baby. And then you're also an addict to your hormones, because when you induce hormones, it does create an opioid effect, just like exercising. I remember when I getting that acne, that was huge when I got that acne back when I was in my PMS, PMDD period days. So I don't have that anymore. And I was watching The World's Toughest Prisons on Netflix, and they were talking about, they have to exercise. I mean, they don't have barbells, they don't have like a whole training system because they're in the middle of nowhere in a prison that has no electricity, no running water, and not really good plumbing. And so they just take these huge, liter bottles, fill it up with water, and then they strap it around a long pole and they lift weights. And the guy that, was the narrator who goes into these prisons and lives there, because he was falsely accused and was in prison for 12 years. And then now his whole career is going to the world's toughest prisons. So he's asking them, well, why do you guys lift weights? And he's like, well, because it is a way to relieve stress. It is a way to make us take our minds off of the severity of their situation. They're under extreme stress in prison. They are, always, it's going to be fight or flight in prison. And they don't see any hope. They're in there for like 25 years, 30 years for life. And so what do you do to self-soothe, to make you feel like you're not going to go nuts? You go and exercise. You create a painkiller of sorts. And so our society is all about killing the pain, because the reason why we're in pain, because the body's trying to heal from all of the stresses, the pathogens, the hormones that we are creating and inducing and exposing ourselves to. And that's why you see so much suffering. And that's why you see people who are unemotional joining their families, because they, like I've been listening to Chris Watts lately. It's just been so interesting listening to all of that, because it makes you wonder what drives a person to do those types of things. And you look at the mannerisms, you look at just their whole background and what will make a person snap, and then their whole situation, what led up to it. And when someone is like, it's like right now, I feel unemotional, but I'm on a life trajectory unemotional. I'm not feeling crazy from activism. I'm not feeling super sad, because there's nothing that's so wonderful, right? And so horrible that I have to be on these highs and lows. And pain and pleasure is hormones. When you have extreme pain, it's because your body hormones are being produced, the body's trying to heal, and then hopefully you reverse whatever issue. When you have major pleasure, that's another type of opioid type of drug. And that's when you're chasing pleasure all the time, that's also a sign of an imbalance. So when a person doesn't have where they feel any pain or pleasure, but yet they go and kill somebody, it's because they've tapped where they don't feel any emotion, no empathy, no nothing, and they only want to get to their specific result, their only way out. Because right now I'm not a killer, of course, right? I'm not gonna do that. So why am I not feeling major emotion? And it's because it's like I'm on a life trajectory, taking care of business, of course, helping people, giving you guys a heads up and this and that. And it's a different context. So can you be unemotional and not be a killer? That's the thing. That's an interesting thing that I've noticed, because it's like I look at things now logically, and it's always from a pro-life basis. Because even pro-life in our society, pro-life in our society is about life coming to fruition, but it's not about taking care of life indefinitely. Everyone wants to bring life into the world, right? All these pro-lifers, but no one wants to actually make it a quality life. And so that's the difference, is that, we're pro-lifers with Chili Juice, but we also want to make your life quality. We don't want to see suffering. And right now with suffering, it's because of the hormones. Okay. So, and that's, and then I'm looking at all the different peoples in leaders in positions of power, and they're all dealing with sex scandals and corruption and all of that. And they're just as mutated as the guy down the street. They just happen to have a lot more money and a lot more access to resources. That's the only difference between those that are running our country and those that are, protesting, is that there's just different mutations in different socioeconomic classes. That's it. So when you finally realize that everybody out there, okay, no matter who they are, if they're aging, they are suffering. And some hide it very well. Hello, Donna Westville, good morning. Some hide their suffering very well. But when somebody's aging, they're not living a wonderful, absolutely amazing life, because they're dealing with health issues. They have relationship issues. They have other drama issues. Good morning, Crystal. And, and it's like, we can't let people on Facebook fool us. Okay. So, and that's why people get so surprised when someone snaps and goes crazy and kills their family, right? They're like, oh, wow, they look so great. But no, look at, this person suffering from lupus, right? That, that family, Chris Watts, because this whole thing with the internet and with YouTube, and we're able to now study each other. We're able now to figure out what makes us tick. And then there's Dr. Phil, who tries to analyze the signs. How would you know if someone's going to snap? And that's hard to say because there's so many different circumstances that lead up to it. And, there's so many mutations that could contribute. And then the scenarios, the people that you are married to, the people that you are living with, financial situations. There's so many factors that contribute to why a person would snap. It's obviously not as prevalent, or we'd see a lot of people killing their family. So it takes a very specific situation for a person to do that. Okay. And so there's no way to really know exactly the red flags, because you can have the same situation, the same scenario in one situation, and the person won't snap. The person will be like, okay, I'm going to get a divorce. I'm not going to kill my family. And then another person is going to do completely the opposite. No different than, the stand your ground laws with gun rights and all that. You can have the same situation and have two different outcomes in a courtroom. So it's hard to say, but you'll know that you won't ever have to deal with that if you have somebody relatively healthy, okay, with all of these pills and powders and supplements and detoxes and all these things that are out there, that just contributes and compounds the mutations that are already there. Now with chili juice, you're not taking anything that's compounding the issue. You're bringing to surface mutations that are getting fixed. And some people are going to experience certain manifestations that they're going to be like, whoa, I haven't experienced this in a long time. Morning, Krista. Or, whoa, I had never experienced this ever. Well, hey, that's something that you're going to be triggering if you were to stay on that same course. That's called future triggers. So with Jilly Juice, which is a protocol that I've created that has specific intentions, it circulates in the positive. It gives your body all the necessary nutrition and elements that is abiding by the laws of your immune system. But the allopathic and the holistic world, they're all inducing more hormones, more antibodies, more ways of checking out, anesthetizing yourself, and they don't want to admit it. And then when you say, hey, the people that you're following are aging, they just can't seem to wrap their mind around that aging is cell degradation, and there's already mutations. When you're a tantric psychologist, when you're a sex therapist, when you are into Kundalini, you are trying to tap into sexuality because you're on a death trajectory, okay? And that they're doing is that they're commercializing sexuality. They're making it into a recreational thing versus an actual thing that is necessary to keep the human species forward or carry it forward. And they're using sexuality as a completely different intention. But we have to look back at Mother Nature. What is the point of sexuality? Okay, and that's no different than, the bunnies that make sure that they procreate to keep their species forward, to carry them so they don't have extinction. No different than when plants drop seeds and they get, fertilized and it germinates, and then a new plant and a new tree grows. I mean, it keeps Earth at a balance. So we have to now figure out, okay, well, with reproduction and all of that, there comes suffering. I mean, these monks, okay, yeah, monks have certain wisdom of the ages, but they're aging. So everything that we thought we knew that was full of wisdom and full of whatever, because they're aging and they look like they're, a sage of sorts, it's mutations. Aging equals mutations. Death is a mutation. When you trigger hormones, it's a mutation. I have not had a zit on my face for probably a good year. Ever since I got my hormones under control and my PMDD under control, I have not had a zit. And I used to get a zit a few years ago every month, because I would have a production of estrogen come into surface every freaking month. So I'd have a zit, and I'd have all these different symptoms that followed up to my period, but I have not had a zit or any skin condition issues for probably a good 6 or 7 months. I don't remember when the last time I had that issue. Now, I remember when I was healing, I had very dry skin because I've always had dry skin before I did the protocol. So I was always slapping on some kind of lotion or oil, but not anymore. So I don't even use any oils on my face. Nothing. I take a shower, I dry my hair, and that's it. There is no coconut oil I use in my face. I don't use any argan oil. I don't use any olive oil, nothing. People that have to use oils on their face and on their bodies because they have skin issues. They have hormones that are out of whack that are throwing the balance off the body. So yeah, and that's what, we now have to understand, that aging is all these crazy hormones. So when you're taking your thyroid out, when you're taking your pancreas out, when you're messing and taking birth control pills or taking any kind of birth control, you are taking in synthetic hormones. Now, synthetic, and that means that it's somebody else's hormones. You're taking in a lab-created hormone that is not your own. When you're taking supplements like vitamin D or any other hormone replacement therapy that's out there in the supplements market, you are accelerating the aging process. But no, these holistic people don't want to see that playing with hormones is actually detrimental. It makes you circle the drain. And then when you have really major fluctuations in your hormones, then you have mental illness, bipolarism, schizophrenia, homicidal, suicidal, all of these things, serotonin, dopamine, all these different hormones. And then the thing with what they're doing with the MK Ultra, or all these satanic people supposedly in government that are doing adrenochrome and all that, that's adrenaline hormone that's supposedly supposed to make you youthful. But your body's still going to decay. You can't, how much adrenochrome are you going to drink, and how many people are you going to kill to get that adrenochrome, right? When someone lives a major, like an adrenaline junkie, or they're always pursuing pleasure, going on sex vacations and all that stuff, guess what? They're adrenaline junkies. They are addicted to the hormones. Any kind of pain, any kind of pleasure, when you induce it purposely, not for the intention of healing, but when you induce pain and pleasure, like BDSM and all that stuff, you are playing with your hormones. It is a drug. Hormones are a drug. And they're using it in drugs. Hormones, I mean, look, when you're taking all these different, prescription drugs, those are hormones along with other negative elements. That's what we have to really, really understand, that hormones, when you play with hormones like in the way that we're doing it, it is detrimental to your existence. It may give you, a little bit of pleasure now. It may kind of get you from point A to point Z for a minute. But then you look, the prisoners, they have to be doing lifting weights, because that right there is another hormone that's getting induced. It's the pleasure. It's the detoxin effect, when you're bringing all this crap to surface and you're molding your body without doing any kind of cell regeneration. It is another hormone that's being created from working out. That's why working out is so addictive. That's why people that work out, that run, they're running themselves into the ground. Marathon runners, Olympians, athletes, they're addicted to the hormones. I was an athlete too. I played soccer, but I was more of a goalie. I used to be, a halfback. I used to be a fullback. Well, I love fullback. Fullback is fun because you charge somebody, you kick the ball, and yeah, you're running towards people who are coming at you. So it's like being a kamikaze. I was a great kamikaze. And even being a goalie, it took a lot of balls to the face. But, that was fun. And then when I got injured, in 2003, I said, no more. So athletes and anybody that chases pleasure and adrenaline, they're addicted to their hormones. When somebody is chasing sex, trying to have the best sexual experience, tantric sex, kundalini, they're chasing hormones. When people flip the fuck out, in our society, and they go crazy for whatever reason, it's the hormones out of control. Every single suffering in our society is based upon hormones. Every single remedy that's out there to deal with out of control hormones is another hormone. Oh, you're low in this, so we're going to take this so you can bounce you in this. And then we're like, oh, okay, now I feel better. I'm taking this hormone. Antidepressants are a type of hormones. Okay? Every single thing that has you become allegedly stabilized for a certain amount of time is a hormone. Diabetics, hormones. They have major out of whack hormones, and then when they don't produce hormones in their body, they have to take, synthetic ones. It still makes them all cattywampus and crazy. We shouldn't be inducing hormones. Yes, I'm a woman. I have a certain amount of estrogen, but if I'm estrogen dominant, then that means that my hormones are out of whack. But what I'm trying to do is induce amenorrhea, where I'm not dropping seeds. I'm not, inducing my hormones to happen by having menstruation. And not because I have an underlying cause of anorexia or 4% fat, which I deleted Gary Stokes off my page because he said, oh yeah, people that don't get their periods because they have 4% fat. So what are you saying, that I'm anorexic? No, I'm eating. I eat pumpkin pie. I had a little bit of pizza oven yesterday. I eat whatever the hell I want, but in very small amounts. Very. And I drink my drink. I haven't even checked my fat on my body. I haven't induced amenorrhea yet. But my whole theory is that when your body is on a 100% life trajectory where you don't have the mutations anymore. Okay, you're not going to be asexual, and for women, you're not going to be dropping seeds, or your period's going to be almost nil to none. And for men, you're going to be way more focused, less focused on your below the belt, and you're less focused on chasing girls and more focused on your goals and dreams, on making this world a better place as well as for you and your family. That would be like the ultimate utopian society, when we're not worried about how we can get this girl in bed, when we're not worried about how we can get away from having to be accountable to our 10 kids. Because when you think about it, when people are like, okay, I only have so much life to live, okay, like 50 or 60 or 70 years, and then they have 5 or 6 children, and they're just dying for freedom, I can see why people snap. And then they don't have a lot of support. It's tough out there for those that don't understand that when you have kids, it's a major responsibility. When you're sick and you have to make sure that all of your hormone levels are perfect so you don't freak out, that's a lot of responsibility, and it can mess with you. And how many drugs are you going to take to keep the balance? And those drugs have side effects. It's not like, oh yeah, you're going to be great forever, because you're looking at people who are degrading. Okay? We're seeing kids that understand that when they have sex, because they're catering to the suffering of their hormones, and they are very sexual at a very young age, and then they go impregnate a girl, they're now faced with, a lot of different things that they're not prepared for. So, I'm wondering, what if, yeah, we can get our kids to develop with nutrition at a very fast and early rate. I don't even know what that looks like. If you actually gave your baby and your child, your toddler, access to 100% nutrition, and their body was able to absorb 100% nutrition, would they develop very quickly? When would they develop? Because when you do trigger hormones, and when you do trigger pathogens, because pathogens induce hormones, which then trigger, very quick development right now in our society, right? And then it triggers menstruation at 11 or 10 or even 8 years old, and then they're able to have a baby, and then you have these little girls that are like 8 or 9 years old looking like they're like 16 and 17, right? That's really the future where we're going. But what would happen if we actually naturally gave our kids access to nutrition, babies? What would their physical development process look like? When you're not triggering hormones at such an early age, what would their developmental process look like? Would they be little geniuses because they'd be so much more focused? Then you give them access to education, but then you give them away from kids that are majorly messed up and mutated, because there's kids in the system that are so hormone driven that they would create hormones in a kid that hasn't had hormones triggered. And then that's like no different than being, vaccinated and unvaccinated. When somebody isn't triggering their hormones or getting their period and everything is relatively peaceful in their life, and then you stick them into a situation where it's full of stress, they're going to have hormones being created because it's fight or flight now. They got to be able to survive in a gladiator type of environment, which is public school. If you have kids, if you guys have kids and they're doing jelly juice, and you have a very peaceful household for the most part, and your kids are on a peaceful trajectory, do not stick them in public school, because then that's when they will get shaped in a very different way. The hormones get created, and stress will probably create menstruation. So, if you don't want to be vaccinated, that's great. Don't stick your kid in a school that's vaccinations, because they're going to get vaccinated by all the vaccinated kids. That's why the anti-vax and pro-vax are like really no different. They beget each other. That's why the whole argument is so full of poop. Okay? So, it's about when you look at how do hormones get triggered, and it's from high stressful situations and pathogens. And so you want to, but this is the world that we live in. So, there's ways to introduce pathogens to where you're still able to keep the balance, but then you're always having to make sure that kid is going to be regenerated. So if you do stick your kid in freaking public school, which is fine, but you better make sure they have the jelly juice, because to repair from the damage of those mutations of being around kids that are not doing jelly juice, that are majorly mutated, hormone driven in so many different ways. And that's going to be like, hopefully that's the future of parents, that we have parents that actually give a crap about their kids. Now, obviously, what's happened in the past, you have no control over, so it's no big deal. Don't worry about what it's already done. But if you're going to live for a while, and then your kids have kids, do the freaking protocol. Give your kids who are having kids access to this information, which means you got to do this protocol and show everybody what the possibility is. Or guess what? You're going to have more mental illness in your family. More mutations are going to be even more compounded, and you have more suffering and more, and then guess what? The world's not going to change. Your presidents are not going to change. The reason why we have so much corruption and so much scandal in high levels of government is because we have so many mutations in the population. Guess who goes into the government? People in the population. Common thought processes are being everywhere, and so they also end up in government. And so people in government are doing, the chemotherapy and the cannabis and the immunotherapies and the stem cell stuff. And all of that obviously has an end that is predictable. So it really comes down to the hormones in our society are out of fucking control. They are out of control. And so when you see high fluctuations of like excitement to depression and points in between, and they're not doing jelly juice, or if they're doing jelly juice, and you expect that because your biochemistry is changing. But if they're not doing jelly juice and they're going from way high to way low, and then maybe somewhere in the middle where they're like no emotion, watch out for unemotional people who are not on jelly juice. Those probably are the ones that snap if they're under the right conditions, when they're in high stress situations, which could be a sick family. The ones that left the military, coming back into this society, coming back into civilian society. Okay? So, yeah. This is something just to be aware of. Okay? And that's what really all of this research that we've been doing, it culminates down to the estrogen dominance feeds the candida. Hormones feed the fungus. Okay, the sugar, when you have out of control sugar, it feeds the fungus if you don't have a balance. But see, I can go and have whatever I want, but guess what? I'm always drinking my juice. And when I have whatever I want, it's in very small amounts. But right now, all of you who are way behind the 8 ball, you can't play that game until you get yourself at least the obvious issues completely reversed. And then you'll see issues that come up that you'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't know I had this issue. Or, oh, wow, this was a reminder of like 10 or 15 years ago. You're going to have memories come up. You will be traveling back in time through this protocol. Because really, the universe consists within you, which is such a trip, because I've always felt like, from my perspective, the world, like everybody's like a bunch of walking sticks, and I'm just this person looking through the window of my eyes, experiencing what I'm experiencing, and everything is every action that I do is based upon how I feel, as well as what I think is right. But for the most part, it's how I feel. But I'll still keep within the framework of what is correct, or else I'd be on the street suffering, right? I mean, I still have a survival instinct, and most people do. But I wish I could like fly over the earth and look at everybody, you know? But this is, this is the world that I see for all of us, because I don't see myself suffering in the way that right now most people out there are suffering. I've sent my books to some of my family members. I have no expectation they're going to read it. I have no expectation they're going to do it. But the fact that I gave them the opportunity to do it if they choose is good enough for me, because everything does come down to a choice. And so, and that's, so that's what the whole thing with the Illuminati, right? They say that they tell you what they're going to do, or they say, hey, here are your choices. And they make you guys choose. So that way they're absolved of any responsibility. And it's interesting that the fact what people think is imminent danger. When you call 911, it's because something is happening to where your body is in harm's way. That's what 911 is, right? 911 is when you have an emergency. You're in imminent danger and you need help right away. We have these activists that think that everything is 911. The fact that we're able to live right now and do what we can do, we have been given choices. When you are dialing 911, it means you have no freaking choice. The only choice you have is to get help, and hopefully you don't die before they come. That's what 911, that's what a revolution is when you are in imminent danger. So if you're not in imminent danger, then it's all about choices. So that's why I'm so disgusted with the activist community now that I'm at relative equilibrium. I'm disgusted with them because they're taking, advantage that they're not in imminent danger. People who get vaccines, who've survived. I mean, babies, you have no idea what their biochemistry. Yeah, that's a crapshoot. And that sucks. But no one's calling 911 when they're getting their babies' vaccines, right? But now you guys have the information. So if you have to be force vaccinated, guess what? You're going to be drinking a lot of my juice and drinking lots of water, and you're going to be purging and repairing from the pathogens in the vaccines. You'll be purging and repairing from the extra elements in the air, pollution, the water, the food, 5G, Wi-Fi. You're not in imminent danger, any of you. The only people that are in imminent danger is when people who are calling 911, not because the fast food counter won't serve you a hamburger. We have idiots that call 911 for that. But when you are calling 911, that's when you have no choices. But now you have a choice with Jelly Juice, so you don't have to feel like you live a 911 episode every single day. And what are you doing? You're creating adrenaline. And guess what? That's creating hormones. When you're an activist, all pissed off and all angry, guess what? You're creating hormones. When you're so happy and so pleasurable and everything is just so wonderful and you're like, blah, 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 that's hormones. When people are so nice and so kind and so like, oh, this is, you got to come from positivity, everything. So that's hormones. Okay, you can be on a life trajectory without being so syrupy sweet or being so angry and bitter. That does exist. But I mean, all this stuff on Facebook, the activism, hormone driven, and those people will suffer. And the ones that are doing Jelly Juice will have less and less of the activism on their Facebook. And the ones that say they do due diligence, oh yeah, I'm doing diligence, but they're still activisming, whatever. They're still relying on their hormones because they're still angry, because they're hormone driven. When your hormones are out of whack, everything's a fucking emergency based upon what you think you've read. No, not everything is 911. But when 911 happens, people are not going to believe you because you've been crying 911 for your whole freaking life. Oh my God, they're trying to kill me. So it's like the boy who cried wolf. So when you're an activist, you're like the boy who cried wolf because you're not in imminent danger. So that's what I find that's my takeaway of where I'm at with this protocol, is that I want to use 911 for real emergencies, not for this BS because the first world is so bored with their life and they have nothing else going on because they're mutated. If you want to change government, change your kids who will eventually, and change yourself, and then run for freaking office and finally have some some equilibrium there in or some kind of sense, some logic. But we keep electing these people in office who are aging and mutated. What do you expect? What do you expect? So that's why I don't deal with politics. I mean, I find it comical. The activism, find it comical. The holistic industry, find it comical. Allopathic industry, I find it comical. It's weird looking from the outside in at our whole world today. When you finally realize how this world is run by hormones. And I, for one, finally got over control of my hormones. And I hope all of you do too. So, my life is going to be peaceful. I'm not going to invite drama in my life. No activism, no politics. And I'll do my best to get this information out to those that are willing to hear it. And those that aren't, I don't care. Cut them out. Those that want to drop seeds of doubt, which I did yesterday. Yesterday, Tamara Messenger's like, oh, about the testimony about the person's eyesight. And she's given her whole perception of what happens in the matrix with eyesight. Yeah, I have no problem cutting people off my Facebook. They have access to my book. But I get really annoyed with aging naturopathics who think that they have something to say in my world. They have zero credibility in my world. So I have no reason to listen to an aging naturopathic who thinks they have knowledge to impart. No, honey, you are aging, you're degrading, you have nothing that I want to hear. So that's how I would like for you guys to start, coming from that point of view. And if you want to, impart wisdom, then you have to exemplify that wisdom. And that is not aging. That is actually doing the protocol. That's actually showing specific measurable results, not paying lip service. And some of you shouldn't be promoting this protocol because you have no business, because you're not there yet. For one, you don't know how to sell this, and you're not trying to sell this to people that are not willing to buy. And you really just have to say, hey, I love Jillian's protocol. Drop the seeds, drop the links, and say, hey, any questions? Get the book, and then ask all of your unlimited questions in the discussion forum. Do not try to counsel them through this. Do not try to be that one person that's going to save them, because guess what? That's going to backfire on you. You make sure that they actually be the one to premeditate their whole contribution to this, their whole experience. They're the ones that actually have to, either they get the book, or if you bought the book, great, then they have to send us an email. And then that email will be then the picture of the book. I said, hey, Bridget, or somebody bought it for me. And then they are the ones, they're going to premeditate getting the login and password. They're going to premeditate going in and asking the question. And they're going to read the book. It's a vetting process. Right now, we are so used to just like slamming people into protocols. We're so used to forcing people, imposing our will onto them without really proper strategy on doing this. Not everybody can do this. You try to give this to somebody, oh yeah, this is going to do this for you, this is going to do that for you, it's going to be so wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And then they do it and they're like, oh my God, I had a healing symptom. And they're like, what the hell did you do to me? And then they come back at you. They're not going to come back at me because I never had any kind of, dealings with them. They're going to come back on you. So you got to give everybody the opportunity to read for themselves. And people are going to fall through the cracks. Hey, whatever. I have family that are going to fall through the cracks. What can I do? Absolutely nothing. So, yeah. But yes, everything in our society is hormone driven. And when you're hormone driven, you're so angry, you're so happy, all the feelings, all the emojis or reactions on Facebook is all hormone driven. Now, you can like something that's not hormone driven. I can like something. But when you have the other emojis, the love, all of that, those emojis, yeah. Was it like the love, the angry, the surprise? That's adrenaline. All of these reactions are adrenaline. They're hormones. They're all hormones. Now, how you manage your hormones and how you recover from those hormones that are poisonous to your body on a continuous basis is going to be the difference whether or not you live or die in our society. Because we're going to be around people who are negative, full of hormones. So how are we able to handle living in a society that is hormone driven? Create a nice protective bubble with the right elements. So just watch when you guys get angry, when you guys get sad, when you're like, oh, full of love, because that's what triggers me when people are like these empaths that are like, oh, I'm so lovey-dovey. Everything is so love, 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 love. Oh, love everybody. Love this, love that. You're like, oh my God, this person's imbalanced. Full of freaking hormones. When someone's so angry and caustic and angry and political and activist, hormones. When someone's always surprised that everything is a surprise, they were not aware of this happened, another hormone. When you're always continuously being surprised, it's because you have lack of awareness of anything that goes on. It's another hormone. It's a protective way, but it's an opioid. Activism is an addiction. Being angry is an addiction. Always being surprised is an addiction. Always full of love isn't a freaking addiction. All of those hormones those reactions, those feelings are addictions. So, there's a balance too, because then you have partners are like all full of love and all this are amorous, and my situation, right? So I try to balance it all out because I still got to be married. I still got to live in our society. But I'm very aware of the imbalance. And you just do your best to work with it and recover from whatever impact that it may have on you. Okay. So, so I have been seeing some of my friends sort of fall away that are still stuck in the activist world because it is hormone driven and I'm like over it. And that's why I was hormone driven over it a couple days ago, like just bashing everybody, right? But that comes from just the understanding of knowing what exactly I'm dealing with and I'm just pissed off that we're even at this point. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to live my life. I'm going to still impart, whatever wisdom that I have around this knowledge and whatever. I'm still going to be engaged with you guys. No, I'm not going to be angry about anything. I'm going to give you the matter of facts. But I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to enjoy whatever it is I plan to do, whether it's moving, looking for a house, figuring out the next book with Kevin and getting that information out there, speaking at whatever engagements, giving people the opportunity to check out what this protocol is about, and I'm still gonna like talk about cannabis and stuff, but it's just like I'm not gonna be like angry about it because it's about knowledge. Emotions do cloud logic. And so when you give people straight up knowledge, how can they really, they could argue, but what's the point? The evidence is already out there. I introduced a new possibility, immortality. Nobody can compete with that. Nobody. Now you can't promise it. No, there's no way to prove that you're immortal, that you can become immortal. But then you look at what's already been proven with all the different protocols. When you're doing rife machines, when you're doing cannabis, because cannabis has been around for years, when you're looking at people who are saying that they're doing this, who are advocating it, and they're aging right there. Oh, the rife machine hasn't worked yet. But then when I ask, hey, do you believe in immortality? And they say no, that's all the answers that you need. If someone says they do not believe in immortality, that's all you need. Move on. Because nobody in the holistic allopathic community will ever say that you could possibly live forever, providing you are in the right conditions. Nobody. They're only saying that only certain animals and invertebrates and bacteria have the potential to be immortal. They will never ever say a human can be immortal. Ever. But then, look at my book, and I talk about the reversing the aging process, regrowing limbs and organs, cell regeneration. Right there, how can you argue with that? Bone spurs. People don't even know what the hell bone spurs are. They don't even know what osteogenesis is. There's so many ignorant people because they haven't studied it, because it's been compartmentalized in the medical industry. So of course, some lay person who is listening to somebody in the medical industry is not going to know what osteogenesis is, or what osteopath, or what autophagy is. So when we have all these little compartmentalized types of knowledge, these functional silos, there's no cross-functional communication in academia to the regular layperson. There's no cross-functional communication with the doctor to the patient. There's manipulation, and there's hormones, hormone-driven relationships. The blissful feeling of taking a person's money after they've seen you for 15 minutes and they charge the insurance company, and they're getting thousands and thousands of dollars. Anyways, all right, I'm going to do my thing. But happy Sunday. And yeah, happy Sunday. You guys just do the protocol. Go to jillyjuice.com. Kevin's working on, he's working hard on the book. I know he is. And I know probably by after the new year, we'll get it submitted. But we got to edit it, make sure everything is to the guidelines. And then that will be the book that we're definitely going to, we're going to promote the book that I have now, which is a primer. But this book that Kevin and I are writing is going to have so much more detail. And it's really going to be the book that sells the primer. Okay? Because the book that I put out there was mainly for people who were in my group that wanted to have the Cliff Notes. So I created that for people. And so now Kevin's information is going to substantiate even more in depth. Like I gave enough, information to give people, enough info for them to do it. But Kevin's going to go deeper, and I'm going to have more insights on stuff that I hadn't put in my book. So I have my own insights, and then Kevin will put more details in it from his perspective. And he's a very good way with words. So that's what our plans are. Okay. So just stay tuned for that. Otherwise, have a good, safe Christmas, everybody. I will probably take a few days off. Okay, because it is Christmas, and I just, need a few days, and because I'm, going through my own healing process and processing all of this, just how I feel. I'm feeling very just calm. It's kind of weird. It's very new not to be having some kind of emotion, whether it's angry or sad or disgusted or attacking or this. It's really weird. And you can see the difference. I can feel it. So, yeah. So I need to process all this. But you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy your Hanukkah, Christmas, everything. Okay? And I'll see you in a few days. I'll see you after Christmas or something. Okay. Talk to you guys later. I'll see you on Facebook, of course. But I will see you guys later. Bye.